All right, Segun, let's look at first of all, I would like to please ask you to unmute your device. Then I want to find out what trends are emerging in Lagos budget planning and, in terms of the next or the past 5 years.
Okay. Thanks for having me on your show again. Good afternoon. I think if you take a look at the last 5 years with regards to the trend of the budgets that the Lagos State government has presented, you find a number of interesting points. First, it's obviously the fact that Lagos State is unarguably the most prosperous state in Nigeria and are the ones that are turning out the trillion naira budgets. Whether those trillions of naira are translating to commensurate development and resulting in the required human development indicators is a different issue. Also, I think it's very interesting to find or to note that performance-wise, over the last 5 years, the Lagos State budget revenue side has either performed 100%, slightly below 100%, or actually slightly above 100% in terms of revenue expectations, both from IGR and from FAC allocations. But conversely, you find that there is typically a slight shortfall in performance from the expenditure side. Recurrent expenditure-wise, Lagos State government has performed 100%. They don't owe salaries, they don't owe pension, they don't have any pension arrears. In terms of all of those recurrent overheads, the Lagos State government has done 100%, in this period. However, when it comes to capital expenditure, we have seen some shortfalls, and in some instances, there are significant shortfalls. For example, in the education sector, in 2025, the first quarter report released by the Auditor General of the Lagos State government shows a mere 13% performance in education for the first quarter of 2025, compared to the amount that was budgeted, for that sector, for that period, and that is very concerning, So I think that if you look at this pattern where expenditure-wise, especially capital expenditure-wise, we're underperforming budget, whilst on revenue side, we're overperforming budget, you have to ask questions as to what exactly is going on there. Why are we not, executing the projects that we stated that we're going to execute, whilst we are collecting all the monies that we expected to collect? It's a question that the government may want to provide answers to the Lagos State public for.
Okay, but let's take a look at the sectors that should even be prioritized in the 2026 budget. What sectors do we think are supposed to have the greatest impact on residents and should be prioritized?
For me, it's a question that I've asked myself as well, and I've pinpointed 3 very critical sectors, in my opinion, given the nature and the demographic structure of this state. Very crucial will be the education sector and the health care sector. And these sectors are very critical, I think, to any economy, actually, anywhere in the world and across this country, but also more so for Lagos State because of our population. Lagos State has anywhere between, depending on what number you're looking at, anywhere between 22 million to 25 million people as we speak. And that population, there is a huge, a very significant income disparity, inequality, in the state within that very large population. So you've got the very, very rich, the extraordinarily rich, staying in some sections of the state, and then you've got extremely poor people, also in that same state, and in fact, in some of those exact same locations. So one would want to see a state government that is prioritizing education such that over a long-term period, you can begin to even out those inequalities and have income distribution a bit, fairer as far as the disparities is concerned. And then, of course, if you've got that kind of population, then you want to make sure that your populations are healthy, that your population is healthy, because it is only when people are healthy that they can be productive. And thirdly, the third sector that I would love to see the state government do much more on is transportation, road transportation, and other forms of transportation. Again, just simply because of the population, the size of this state, especially the density. Lagos State is one of the smallest in terms of landmass in Nigeria, but has by far the largest population compared to the other states. So you have to get it right with how you move, especially people, but also goods and services across the state. So a little more spent, in fact, a whole lot more spent in train infrastructure, rail infrastructure, in intermodal transportation across the waterways, and of course, the very good initiative of the bus rapid transport system, but that is grossly, severely underfunded, and that is really not performing very well. Those areas need a lot of attention so that we can see productivity ramp up significantly, in the state. So education, healthcare, and transportation are areas that I think that the government needs to do a whole lot more with.
Okay, so do you think that the 2026 budget will be more of a legacy effort for Governor Sanwo-Olu?
I mean, for politicians generally, it's not unusual to find that for their the final budget that they would, pass along for their tenure, this is more or less his last year in office, or this will be his last budget. You would expect that there will be some sort of legacy projects, and the budget itself is a legacy budget in the sense that they want to execute some. There are two ways to look at that question of legacy. There is one where you are saying that the politician wants to execute some very big milestone projects so that, you say, oh, this is what I did. But then there's also the concern that the concept of legacy may also be one where the man knows that this is his last hurrah, and he wants to settle the boys. He wants to settle himself and settle the people that have helped him do whatever he has done in the last 7 years. And so you find that that budget is significantly higher than what you would normally expect. And when you do a review subsequently, maybe a year or two later, you look at the Auditor General's report, you might find significant underperformance numbers where revenues have come in, but expenditure have not exactly happened in the proportion that you're expecting them to have happened. So it's something that I think that Lagosians will probably want to just pay attention to. We don't pay enough attention, unfortunately, in this country to the subnational governments and what they're doing with monies.
So would you say that Lagos needs to focus on a bigger budget or on better executions of the existing allocations?
I think the Lagos state government needs to focus on reprioritization of the budgets. An allocation of 7.6% thereabouts, for this 2026 budget to education, about 6.5% to healthcare is simply not good enough. We all know what the UNESCO standards, anything from 18% to even 25% of your budget is expected to go into education if you really, really are driving for long-term sustainable development. So we're far off that. So I think that rather than focusing, on very large numbers that you may end up not achieving anyway, that we should find a way to reorganize our priorities and rechannel resources to the most critical and most impactful sectors of your economy to ensure the greatest impact for every naira that is spent by that government. So it's not so much about size, but about the effectiveness of whatever it is that you do deploy.
All right. Thank you so much. We'd like to appreciate you, Segun Sopitan, a principal partner at Woodridge Scott Consulting, for lending your voice to this conversation. And we'll see what the 2026 budget reallocation turns out to be. Thank you.